Yeah, so this has been super interesting, and you're talking a lot about this Cold War, going on between the imperialist powers. But I mean, a lot of people, I know here in the US, and I'm assuming in other parts of the world, are unaware of the actual, we're calling it hot war here, actual battles that are happening around the world. Many people are unaware, whether it be, as you were, alluding to in the India Chinese border battle, in Armenia. We had a demonstration here in Boston about what's going on in Armenia. And then we've talked about on our show what's going on currently in Ethiopia. So for especially our viewers who may be unaware of these conflicts that are happening because the corporate media is not covering it as much as they should, what's going on, in these wars around the world?
There's often not much information about these conflicts taking place. It tends to be covered in the regional media rather than international media. Some of the conflicts, of course, are at the moment potential conflicts, like in the South Chinese Sea or in the East Mediterranean. But other conflicts are certainly getting to be very hot. As far as the people who are living in those areas are concerned, they are brutal conflicts. For example, we've just had the 6-week war in Nagorno-Karabakh. Nagorno-Karabakh is a small Armenian enclave in Azerbaijan in the Caucasus. Used to be part of the Soviet Union. Now, during the course of that 6-week conflict, thousands of people have been killed, houses have been destroyed. It has left tens of thousands of refugees. On this occasion, it's mainly Armenian refugees who have had to flee back to Armenia. But in previous phases of this conflict, you've had nearly 600,000 Azerbaijani refugees fled the region in the war 30 years ago. And you don't have to scratch very far under the surface of these conflicts to find out that it's really a battle over resources. For example, if you look at the East Mediterranean conflict or potential conflict, that has developed after the discovery of hydrocarbon resources in the Mediterranean Sea. You know how Greece, Turkey, Cyprus, Israel, other Middle Eastern powers all arguing over who has control. You have French, American and Russian warships all controlling the sea in that area. And of course, politics also plays a role. The recent conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh, I wouldn't say it's the first conflict for 30 years, but it's certainly the most serious conflict for 30 years that followed the restoration of capitalism in that area. But you have to ask, well, why now? Why did that break out this year? And if you look at it, what you find is that in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, and in Turkey, which has been Azerbaijan's main backer in this war, both countries have been extremely badly affected by economic crisis. You have in Turkey, for example, at the moment, you have 25% unemployment, inflation at over 20%. You have a devaluation of the lira by 30%. And you had government crisis in both countries with a conflict between the authoritarian rulers and their, if you like, their second layer of supporters within their parties. And it's a good way to divert public attention. Have a short victorious war, you build up a patriotic mood, and people forget about their problems. Of course, Armenia now is in a terrible situation. It has to cope with tens of thousands of conflicts. Now, you would think that Nagorno-Karabakh is somewhere that really, with all respect to people in the region, a region that the big imperialist powers are not really interested in. But Pompeo in the last weeks has flown to Ankara. From Ankara, he flew to Tbilisi, which is the capital of the other the other Caucasian country, for negotiations, which were aimed at strengthening an alliance between Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Turkey, because they have an oil pipeline controlled by the US flowing through the countries, to make sure that the three are consolidated against Russia. So you have all sorts of factors coming into play. You have a desire by the people to live in peace in a normal economic situation. Nagorno-Karabakh wants self-determination. It should have the right to have it. But the capitalist imperialist interests won't allow it because they're more interested in exploiting the resources on both sides themselves. And this is a situation that seems to be developing across the world in a whole number of areas. The US has a think tank that lists all the potential hotspots that it thinks can break out into conflict that will affect the US in the coming period. They list 26 different hotspots. There will be no major direct conflict between the imperialist powers with trenches on both sides fighting each other, in my opinion, at least in the next period. But you are certainly going to have loads of small proxy wars that, for the people who live in those areas, are hot wars. And you desperately need an answer to fight those wars.